Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Shri Bhagawatam ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 3:10:11, if we're following what we have in the WhatsApp group. Maitreya Uvacha Gunavyatikara. I'm almost wondering if, I guess Maharaj and I can chant and repeat.
Well, I don't actually.
Oh.
My iPad was turned off.
Well, I'm just going to chant the verse. Nirvishesho pratishtitaha. It's a talented audience. Alright. Purushastadupadanam Atmanam vilayasrajat Gunavyatikara Nirvishesho pratishtita Purushastadupadanam Atmanam vilayasrajat Gunavyatikara Nirvishesho pratishtitaha Purushastadupadanam Atmanam lilayasrajat. Anyone else want to chant from memory? Alright.
Gunavyatikara Nirvishesho pratishtita Purushastadupadanam Atmanam lilayasrajat.
Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said. Gunavyatikara. Of the interactions of the modes of material nature. Akara. Source. Nirvishesha. Without diversity. Apratishtita. Unlimited. Purusha. Of the Supreme Person. Tat. That. Upadanam. Instrument. Atmanam. The material creation. Lilaya. By pastimes. Asarjat. Created. Maitreya said, eternal time is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of material nature. It is unchangeable and limitless, and it works as the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pastimes in the material creation. Purport. The impersonal time factor is the background of the material manifestation as the instrument of the Supreme Lord. It is the ingredient of assistance offered to material nature. No one knows where time began and where it ends, and it is time only which can keep a record of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material manifestation. This time factor is the material cause of creation and is therefore a self-expansion of the personality of Godhead. time is considered the impersonal feature of the Lord. The time factor is also explained by modern men in various ways. Some accept it almost as it is explained in the Srimad Bhagawatam. For example, in Hebrew literature, time is accepted in the same spirit as a representation of God. It is stated therein, God, who at sundry time, I can't, when I see a word that's not common in English, I say like a Sanskrit word, sundry. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets. Metaphysically, time is distinguished as absolute and real. Absolute time is continuous and is unaffected by the speed or slowness of material things. Time is astronomically and mathematically calculated in relation to the speed, change, and life of a particular object. Factually, however, time has nothing to do with the relativities of things. Rather, everything is shaped and calculated in terms of the facility offered by time. Time is the basic measurement of the activity of our senses, by which we calculate past, present, and future. But in factual calculation, time has no beginning and no end. Chanakya Pandit says that even a slight fraction of time cannot be purchased with millions of dollars. And therefore, even a moment of time lost without profit must be calculated as the greatest loss in life. Time is not subject to any form of psychology, nor are the moments objective realities in themselves, but they are dependent on particular experiences. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami concludes that the time factor is intermixed with the activities, actions, and reactions of the external energy of the Lord. Jiva Goswami concludes that the time factor is intermixed with the activities, actions, and reactions of the external energy of the Lord. The external energy or material nature works under the superintendence of the time factor as the Lord himself, and that is why material nature appears to have produced so many wonderful things in the cosmic manifestation. Bhagavad Gita 9:10 confirms this conclusion as follows. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagadviparivartate. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Maitreya Uvacha Gunavyatikara Nirvishesho Pradishtita Purushastadubhadan Atmanam Lilayasraja. Maitreya said, eternal time is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of material nature. It is unchangeable and limitless, and it works as the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pastimes in the material creation. So we had a little break in Bhagavatam class yesterday. We got to hear some nice glorification of Sri Govardhan by our very own Nagapatni Mataji. So, just to recap, the last verse, the question asked was, Vidura was inquiring, "O my Lord, O greatly learned sage, kindly describe eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. What are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail." And so the word time isn't used in today's verse in the reply, but it's implied. He's discussing the manifestation of time. So a few things he points out. It is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of nature. Guna Vyatikara Akara. Akara, the source of Guna Vyatikara. The three modes of material nature. And this creation, this material creation with the three modes is Lilaya, by the pastimes. This is, anyway, we won't go into grammar. Third case singular of Lila. Lilaya, asrajat, created. And Atmanam, the material creation, very interesting. Ever since Maharaj pointed out how interesting this word Atma is used, how its diverse meanings, I've been taking extra note of the different uses of Atma. And so far we've got the mind, body, soul, senses, intelligence. All these different things are Atma in relation to oneself. But here, this one's unique in my experience. Atmanam, the material manifestation. It's quite wonderful. When you think of your influence as Atma, your personal influence on the world, someone may be very influential. In fact, it's become such a thing that people on social media are called influencers. If they have a large fan base, if they have a large reach of their post, they're called influencers. And therefore their Atma is very far-reaching. They're, someone wears a certain type of hat or a certain shirt, and suddenly you see people wearing it in countries far away, which is quite amazing that someone can have that influence across ocean boundaries, across cultural boundaries. Someone gets a particular type of dog and suddenly there's cryptocurrencies based on it. It's ridiculous, but it's this influence, Atma. And so when you think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his influence is supreme. Namo Parasmaya Purushaya Bhuyase Sad Udbhavastana Nirodha Lilaya. For the Grihita Shakti Tritayaya Dehinam. So Grihita, accepting this potency of these three material modes, Tritayaya Dehinam, entering into all living entities as the Kshirodakashaya Vishnu for Lila. Grihita Shakti Tritayaya Dehinam Antarbhavaya Anupalakshya Vartmane. Anupalakshya Vartmane. He's entering in unseen by the general people. But this is accepted as his Lila. Sadudbhavastana Nirodha Lilaya. This creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material manifestation is a Lila of an expansion of Krishna, of these three Vishnu forms. But he is Parasmaya Purushaya, he is above, supreme. Krishna is beyond the direct influence of this material manifestation. There's Nimitta Upadana, the immediate cause and the distant cause, the unrelated effect. The effect and the unrelated cause. So the same word is used, lila, lilaya srajat, lilaya asrajat, that Krishna has created all of this as part of his pastimes. And it's very, very wonderful to think of this whole creation in terms of a pastime of the Lord. Because when you think of pastimes, we think of, yesterday our Govardhan Puja, we think of in this month of Kartik, the pastime of stealing butter and being chastised by Mother Jashoda. And yet, here we see something so mundane being described as a pastime, because it's a pastime of the Lord in his incarnation as Kshirodakashaya Vishnu to enter within the bodies of each living entity. We just heard recently, I don't remember how many chapters or verses ago, that I think it was second canto, that the Lord desired to enter into the various living beings. And so, this is in the pastime of the universal form of the Lord. And with each aspect of his desire, a different material sense and sense object was manifest. And so desiring to enter into the material universe, enter into the material creation, Brahma is creating these different forms. Human beings, animals, plants. So eternal time is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of material nature. Or here it says Gunavyatika, the interactions of the modes of nature. Nirvishesho, apratishtaha. He is, this time factor is unchangeable and limitless. It's running on regardless of how fast or slow, as was pointed out in the purport. Tortoise is moving very slowly, the rabbit is running very quickly. But time is experienced in the same measure. Sometimes scientists will get lost in their study of time and how larger objects warp space-time fabric, and therefore time moves slower around larger objects. There's all these theories and speculations, and who knows, there may be some accuracy to it. Because we experience even in this material manifestation that when various people in Shastra, when they travel, when they cross this time boundary, how about Lord Brahma? He left for what was, by his calculation, a moment's time, and came back and a whole year had passed in Bhalma Lila of Gopal. But the time factor is unchangeable. It's moving on at its constant rate. It's just experienced differently according to where in the universe you are. And it's limitless. So it's nirvishesha and apratishta, unlimited. An interesting translation of apratishta. We, in Iskcon, I've noticed we often don't throw around Sanskrit words quite as much, but I know in other sanghas, everyone knows what pratishta means. They often use this word. You'll see in the Gaudiya Math, people use these Sanskrit words very frequently. Pratishta, reputation, pride, some self-acknowledgement. Pratishta. It's described as a bad quality for someone to have a lot of pratishta.
The last snare of nescience.
The last snare of nescience, Krishnamata says, pratishta. So pratishta is limiting. When one is snared with this net of pratishta, then his reach becomes limited. He's not aware of all of his opportunities of service to the Supreme Lord. So I'm not exactly sure the derivation of how apratishta means unlimited, but I can definitely see how being attached to one's reputation and pride is limiting. This morning,
you were just talking about the time and how it's experienced differently, and I was thinking because of the atom being it talks about in Bhagawatam that time is calculated by the atom and the rotation of the atom. And I was just thinking about how, it's like you have the microcosmic situation, and just as 1 day, 1 second is 1 year in Brahma's time, from an atom to a solar system, it's like that. It's like, so there's a difference in quantity, just like with Krishna. And then the same thing, the layers of the universe, when you're trying to get out of the layers, each layer is 10 times bigger than the last layer. And that last layer, the Omkara, the Pratista, is so many times bigger than that earth layer. So it's all about quantity when you're talking about these kinds of perceptions. And everything to do with the material world has to do with quantity, limitation. Sorry. Everything's counted.
Nirvishesha apratishta, purushastadubhavam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is using this time as an instrument in the material creation. So that verse I quoted is Shukadeva Goswami speaking his prayers in the second canto. Namo Parasmai Purushaya Bhujase. And Pushkar Prabhu sent me a very nice recording of Prabhupada chanting these prayers. It's very sweet. This time as an instrument for Krishna's Leela expanding as the 3 Vishnu forms in this maintenance of the universe. Actually, Prabhupada mentions in the purport expanding in the forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva for Sadbudbhavasthana, for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the material nature. And in the 3 Vishnu forms, that's one of them is maintenance, one of them is entering into Kshirabhakashaya Vishnus, entering into all of the living bodies. And Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is the local aspect in the universe, and Mahavishnu creating all of these bubbles. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, of course, directly related with Lord Brahma. Upadana, it works as the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we have an instrument, it's within our control. It's something that we have access to, that we can use. One could say it becomes part of one's Leela, not in the same way as Krishna's Leelas are enjoyable and divine, but this is my water bottle. When I'm thirsty, I can simply open the top and drink. When Krishna desires to create, to have the material manifestation be created, maintained, and destroyed, he utilizes the instrument of his time factor, something that's at his grasp. This is a very frustrating thing for the living entities to experience as something outside of their grasp. I remember when I was a little boy growing up in the backyard here, each cloud that would pass over the sun as it started to get toward evening would make me fear that the sun had gone down, because I would experience some darkness, especially if it were a very big cloud. Because you always experience, once the sun kind of hits that horizon, it very quickly gets sort of dark. And a similar experience happens when the cloud covers it. It almost feels like the sun had begun setting. And I would think, oh, my playtime is over. And it would be a cause of great distress. Because time is outside of grasp. It's not upadana, it's not my instrument. It's not something I get to control. Even for Lord Brahma, time is out of his control. And that's why in the city, this subterranean heavenly planet of Bhagavati, aptly named because it's a place of great bhoga, great enjoyment. We want to live in Prasadamvati, a place where everything is offered to Krishna. But here in Bhagavati, a place where everything is for my own sense gratification. And these subterranean celestial serpents have jewels on their hoods. And by that light, the whole place is illuminated. And they're enjoying in so many ways with their own beverages, sort of similar to soma rasa, by which drinking they become very powerful, their senses become very strong. And it's described that because the sun has no influence there, that everything is illuminated by their hoods, they don't experience the passing of time. As Krishna Mataji was mentioning, this on the microscopic plane, the atom is moving and showing time very quickly. The sun is moving very slowly, experiencing our day, and then in Satyaloka, even slower. But all of us have some conception of time. In Bhagavati, there's no conception of time, and therefore they don't fear it until Sudarshan comes in and picks them off one by one. A moment of fear, oh, we're fallible. So this time factor being out of our control, we daily experience. Oh, I'm getting older. My sister's birthday was yesterday, and she very happily accepted that she was turning 26 when someone suggested it. Yes, I'm turning 26. Although she's turning 31. Yeah, so.
Oh, good. She's past her Saturn.
So this time factor is a cause of great fear, so much so that people often joke at their birthday parties, when there's less candles there, or when you just have too many years and the whole cake would be candles, so you stop putting so many. It's out of our reach. It's not upadana. It's not an instrument for our enjoyment the way it is for Krishna. For Krishna, everything is for his enjoyment. There's nothing that's a cause of misery, except the misery he feels when his prodigal children are suffering. It's a vicarious sort of misery. No father wants to see his child suffer. And so when we voluntarily choose to enjoy separately, it's some cause for distress for Krishna. So why unnecessarily disturb the Supreme Personality of Godhead when instead we could serve? Upadana, the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pastime of creation. So this understanding of time being accepted by the Hebrew scripture, I thought it was quite a nice little phrase. I don't know where Prabhupada might have heard this, but it's God who at some, I almost did it again, it's so hard not to say sundri. God who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets. So God is taking via medium of the prophets to speak to the fathers of the past. So sundry times means at various times, at different times in the past. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, the opening verse of the 4th chapter. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham avyayam vivasvan manve praha manur ikshvakave pravi. That I spoke this imperishable knowledge, this timeless knowledge unto Vivasvan, the sun god, and he spoke unto Ikshvaku, who spoke it to Manu, or rather Manu, who spoke it to Ikshvaku, Manu Ikshvakave. And Arjuna is saying, he says, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvata. Your birth is inferior. Vivasvata is param janma. He's born way before you. You're showing up here in Dvapara Yuga. How could you have spake? How did you spake it unto the great forefathers? And Krishna says, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna. Tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veda parantapa. We've both had many lives, Krishna has had many incarnations, but you've had so many lifetimes. I remember them all. Natvam veda parantapa, but you've forgotten. This is the nature of this material world, is that time is not our instrument for enjoyment. We don't remember things even from yesterday. I can hardly remember what I had for breakfast 2 days ago. This time factor is causing forgetfulness. This time factor is causing aging. All of the things that the Satchidananda soul doesn't want to experience is given to us by time. My father used to use this verse whenever I didn't know something. He would say, Natvam veda parantapa. But you don't know it. And it's sort of a little slight too, because parantapa means one who can conquer his enemies. It means one who's very powerful. Parantapa. And he's saying, you don't know anything, you little cub. It's like a father lion swatting his baby. Natvam veda parantapa. So it's this nice play by Krishna to sort of let Arjuna know the real situation. That, Vivasvan may seem to be born way before me, but I remember everything. I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this imperishable science, this knowledge, is being spake unto the forefathers by the prophets at sundry times, in different places. So this Hebrew scripture is getting some aspect of this quality of time. It's an interesting purport, this deep dive into the manifestation of time. But of course, inevitably, Chanakya Pandit comes up. What a point. It's nice to think on this every once in a while, that one moment can't be bought with millions of dollars. Even when the quality of life has deteriorated to such a state that you can't enjoy anything anyway, you're laying on the hospital bed about to die and begging the doctor, one more moment, one more moment. Billionaires, they'll give anything, any amount of money, anything to extend my life one more moment. No. Finished. Time will take you. So, in our moments of health, in our moments for those of us who have youthful energy, to utilize this time, to make it an instrument of devotional service, to utilize our time seeing the deities. Is so valuable. When time becomes our instrument for material enjoyment, instead of being in control, we actually are slaves to the three modes of material nature, which becomes very pertinent in reference to that verse by Shukadeva Goswami, that Grihita Shakti Tritaya Dehinam, that the Supreme Lord is playing with the material modes of nature as his Leela, while we remain so tightly bound by the three modes of material nature, such that we chase after material enjoyment according to our mode. And in such a restricted state, we have no freedom whatsoever. When you turn towards Krishna, and suddenly time becomes an instrument for devotional service, then slowly that noose slackens, and one removes oneself from this influence of time, because time is a matter of the material world. And the more one becomes like that ripe coconut, where you shake it and the coconut is separate from the husk, one is in the material world but not of the material world. One is no longer bound by the material energy, by time, by this mortal frame, this tabernacle. Jugada Prabhu loves the word tabernacle. The tabernacle of this body. One experiences service to Krishna, which is an eternal occupation. In the spiritual world, all there is the eternal present. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami concludes that the time factor is intermixed with the activities, actions, and reactions of the external energy of the Lord. Action and reaction. Cause and effect, action and reaction. Everything is mixed in the external energy of the Lord, and under the superintendence of the time factor, the Lord makes material nature produce so many wonderful things in the cosmic manifestation. Mayadhyakshena prakriti, suyate sacharacharam, hetunalnena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. Under the superintendence of Prakriti, all moving and non-moving things are all experiencing cause and effect in the material energy. Nirvishesha. It's hard to see the word nirvishesha and not think of Prabhupada's pranam mantra. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. Prabhupada is liberating Paschatya, the West, from Nirvishesh and Shunyavadi, this concept of this world being without diversity, some ultimate oneness, Nirvishesha, this Mayavad concept, which is interesting in terms of the purport opens up. The impersonal time factor is the background of the material manifestation as the instrument of the Supreme Lord. So this time factor is Nirvishesha, and Prabhupada has come to liberate all of us from this time factor, to liberate us from Nirvishesha, from this concept that we belong in this material world. The West has the cataracts, spiritual cataracts, and India has its physical limitations. But by helping each other, the blind and the lame can conquer great mountains, can conquer all difficulties. And just the opposite, if you just have a bunch of blind people running around following other blind men, they miss the path and fall into a ditch. So Prabhupada has given us this opportunity, such a wonderful opportunity. Actually, last night was just so blissful. Bali was leading Kirtan, and Maharaj's Krishna Balaram were on top of Govardhan Hill, and I took Madhuti and I said, "Oh, are you hungry? It's time to eat." And I turned and walked away, and he got so upset. He said, and he pointed right back to Govardhan Hill. He said, "I want to go there." And I turned around, I said, "Okay." And I went back, and I was feeling a little hungry. And my kid just he just displayed, I don't know, I feel so fortunate to have such a son, because I almost felt embarrassed. My mom's friend Natalie came with a couple of her friends, and so I walk up and I'm holding Madhuti, and he tells them, he says, "You're not the body, you're the spirit soul inside." And I don't know all of the Vishnu names, but one of the Vishnus is in your heart. And he just started going off. And he said, all of us die, but then the spirit soul goes back to Godhead. And I'm just sitting there just thinking, what is going on here? And at first I was feeling like almost apologetic, especially when a 3-year-old starts talking about death. But then I just felt so proud. I thought, I felt some pratishta.
Natalie was so happy. She came and she said bye to Madhuti. She said, "Please come to my house and tell me more about Krishna."
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
It's amazing.
He preached.
Yeah, he totally was preaching, and it wasn't said in 3-year-old terms. He was speaking eloquently.
She was blown away.
It was blowing my mind, and I lived with the kid. I was thinking, oh my, this is amazing. And then he took me back out, and he just wanted to chant and dance, and I just.
I think he told her too that you have to be at the temple because that's where they chant Hare Krishna. And she said something like, "Well, can't we chant Hare Krishna?"
She didn't ask the question. He said it uninvited. The question wasn't even brought there. Of his own volition, he said, "And you don't need to be just here. You can chant Hare Krishna wherever you are." He just went on. He gave a whole Bhagavatam class in 5 or 6 minutes. And as satellite listeners, my sister's friend Megan and her boyfriend, they were listening from far away, and Megan kept turning to her boyfriend, and she was just, they were both like, "Oh, we could listen to this forever. This is fantastic." Yeah, it was really sweet. But it's amazing, just this knowledge is so accessible. Kirtan and this knowledge are both so accessible that even a 3-year-old is getting so much benefit from it. How wonderful. The opening in Srimad Bhagavatam, the very first verse we see, or perhaps second, in the intro, Prabhupada quotes this verse from the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj, that from the time of our youth, from the very beginning, one should take to this Krishna consciousness very seriously. And it's such an opportunity at any stage in our lives to take very seriously to Krishna consciousness. And then I had a dream this morning that I was coming to the temple to give class, and when I showed up, there were thousands of people at the temple. It was just like an overflowing marketplace. There were all these different booths set up. There were tons of people of all categories of life, and everyone was milling about, and there was a loud clamor, and there were tons of cars, and I just thought, what is going on? This isn't Govardhan Puja really took off overnight. Just nobody left, and they invited all their friends. And I showed up the next day to just this wild setup. And then I suppose if I begin my dream, I have to tell the end, even though it's embarrassing, is that I came in and Kusha had someone else sitting on the Vyasasana. She said, "Oh, this person is going to give class today, if that's okay." And in my dream, I stormed off without saying anything to anyone. I went home and I thought, wow, I've been insulted so inappropriately. And I went back home and I thought, I'm not going back to the temple. And it just shows that, you know, in your dreams, your most honest self becomes present. You don't have a lot of control over what happens unless it's been practiced. And so I was recognizing this prideful aspect that I'm so attached to my service. You know, I give class on Saturdays, no one else, and it's something that I need to work on. But I was just thinking in terms of Indra. My father once told me that for him similarly, just like you can't necessarily control what happens in dreams, sometimes when a dream's going the wrong way, your limit of control is that you can just suddenly go, Hare Krishna, and like burst out of it. But you can't directly manipulate things. Well, some people can with a lot of practice. Lucid dreaming is there. But in general, just the point being that when you're not directly in control of your mind and intelligence, then you're on, you know, that wild chariot ride. So Lord Indra is so powerful in that way. You know, he desires something and he has it. And so how much more control he has to have over everything. Whereas us, especially in Kali Yuga, we're not punished according to our thoughts. It's only when you act on it, then you receive the karmic reactions. Oh yeah, that was the other thing Mataji was going on. Maharaj walked in when Mataji was sitting here a couple days ago, and he said, good karma, bad karma, we don't want either of those. We just want, yeah. And some of these things, I don't know if my grandma's telling him or he's getting hit from all angles by these different, sometimes he'll tell me stuff, it's just, wow, Jack. So, I'll read the verse one more time in case it sparks any thoughts in anyone. Guna vyatikara karo nirvishesha pratishtita purushas tadupadanam atmanam lilayasatra. Maitreya said, eternal time is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of material nature. It is unchangeable and limitless, and it works as the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pastimes in the material creation. Any thoughts, corrections, comments?
I'm thinking in the material world, we're in trouble either way. Like we're here in Hawaii, so beautiful, and all of a sudden I'll be like, wow, 20 years just went by like this. Whereas I lived in Gitanagari and you have a really harsh winter and everything feels like it takes forever, and 2 years felt like I was there 20 years. But here, you know, 20 years goes by like that. So you might be enjoying, but it passes so fast. If you're suffering, it goes by more slowly.
The learning is intense.
That is amazing. I've had that thought when I'm chanting japa sometimes, and a round is taking forever. And as that round takes forever, I just think to myself, how wonderful that this round is taking forever. I get to think of Krishna forever. And then suddenly, like, it goes by much faster, and I think, oh no, okay, let it be difficult again, so I can chant longer. You know, I'm just trying to chant.
Think like that. Only in your youth do you think like that.
It's so, I mean, it's just so wonderful. You know, Rupa Goswami is praying, let me have many millions of mouths so that I can chant nicely. Let me have many millions of eyes so I can see Panchatattva dressed so beautifully. Yesterday, it was so wonderful when the curtains opened. Panchatattva, Govardhan Puja, Panchatattva. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra.
We need to, I think, have a meeting with the pujaris regarding opening.
Regarding the time factor?
Yeah, the time factor, like opening after the play to an arti. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Extremely important. Yeah.
I begged and groveled.
I talked to Markandeya after the fact, because Lord Nityananda, by the way, was the primary thespian in his youth. He really put on lots of performances, and if we're followers of Lord Nityananda, we will adjust so that these pastimes of Krishna can be taking place. And just as the greeting was set back to a later time, so similarly the evening arti could be set back to a later time. So we need to have a little meeting with the pujaris in regard to the time factor.
Yeah, and it's nice, in the moment we can get upset about one thing or the other, but if we have it scheduled beforehand, then it will be smooth.
Yeah.
After it was all over, I was speaking with Toshan Krishna Prabhu, and he said that he was in New York for the Vaikuntha players presenting before Prabhupada the kidnapping of Rukmini. And when everyone is falling off their horses and elephants, Prabhupada commented, "Oh, they're Rukmini conscious." And then later on, Prabhupada said, regarding the play, he said, "Better than the book."
Wow.
He's talking about Krishna book. He wrote it. It's just such a funny, better than the book.
He took money out of his white pouch for the Vaikuntha players. And he said the BBT should support the Vaikuntha players. So it's no little program, these plays. Prabhupada wanted a cultural program every single night in Vrindavan, meaning plays and dances, every single night.
And Prabhupada said a picture is worth 1,000 words. Yeah, he
Yeah.
quoted that at one
So
point.
it's real important. These presentations are ultimately extremely important. Prabhupada really wanted them, and so in defense of the pujaris, they had a huge amount of, when diver dresses, they're really elaborate with the pins, and it takes 10 million years. What we need to do is maybe get a few other Brahmins with them for to help them with, to undress the deities, because,
Someday.
After such a situation, they're thinking tomorrow I have to be up at 3, they're thinking like this. So if we plan ahead and facilitate, make it a little easier for them, and we get with them and we all discuss supporting one another's service in the mood of glorifying Lord Nityananda's pastimes,
The thing is that aspect that you're mentioning
Yes.
didn't enter into the refusal to open the deity curtain
Think
because
That doesn't need to be discussed now.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so, but
I think
we will, this is a philosophical discussion with practical application that needs to be addressed, because we're a unit and, we are